What's the worst one night stand you've ever had? Girl I was dating in university decided to try deep throating for the first time while in a 69. She gagged hard and panic pissed a little bit in my mouth. I'm sure she noticed but neither of us said anything. It tasted awful, definitely not an undiscovered fetish of mine. I quietly and chivalrous drooled it onto the bed and kept going with 69, but my heart really wasn't in it after that. I was really drunk and getting to the point of passing out. This girl took it upon herself to take care of me. She tried to give me head which involved a lot of teeth. That wasn't working, so she got on top and started grinding on my bare dick with her blue jeans on. That felt equally terrible. I also got tangled up in her insulin pump cords. Thanks for making me relive this. He starts moving his fingers around in my vagina, exactly the way someone would if they had recently googled the location of the G-spot and were looking forward to testing their knowledge. So I tell him that doesn't work on me and guide him towards what will work on me. He insists that no, he knows what he's doing, just give him a moment and this will blow my mind. I tell him yeah, I see what you're trying to do. I did Google the G-spot myself when I first heard of it. I've tried the very thing you're trying. Others have tried the very thing you're trying. Thorough topographical surveys have been taken over the years. It simply doesn't work on me. Now if you could just move your fingers over here like so. He insists that if I'll just let him keep at it for a bit longer, I'll experience unspeakable ecstasy, the likes of which I've never before imagined. Never mind that I would already be experiencing unspeakable ecstasy if he had just moved his attentions over to where I was pointing. So I look at him expectantly. He keeps doing the finger thing. I stifle a yawn. He keeps doing the finger thing. I try to discreetly glance at the clock. He keeps doing the finger thing. Finally he gets bored of doing the finger thing and takes his fingers out. At last, I eagerly sit up, looking forward to getting down to the actual fun of the evening. And he proceeds to lecture me about what he remembers of what he read on the internet and why I should be having an orgasm. Nobody ended up having an orgasm that night. Had a girl come over after a good Tinder date. Very attractive girl, wanted a consistent sex partner. I joked about how she wasn't able to find it and she said she must be bad at picking up guys. Whatever. I was down. Anyway she came over and gave me head. Fantastic, but right before sex she says she has some vaginal conditional that makes sex complicated. Apparently sex is extremely painful, but she craves it, so she does it anyway. But the catch is she used numbing cream. I put on a condom thinking I'll still feel it, and we go slow. About 5 minutes in, and she asks if I'm still hard. I told her I didn't know. I honestly didn't. I pull out and there is blood, numbing cream and my erect penis. We stopped because it hurt her too much. I didn't feel a thing and was honestly baffled seeing my dick and not being able to feel it erect. The power went out while my then girlfriend had me tied to the bed. Classic wrists and ankles at the corners pose. It was pitch black and in the middle of a thunderstorm, so as soon as we lost power the whole place plunged into darkness. She freaked out and tried to get off the bed, but instead tripped over my leg and basically punched me in the cooch as she went down. Hearing the yelling, one of her housemates comes running in with a flashlight to make sure we are okay. That was how she found out that we had been sleeping with each other and that I'm in fact a natural redhead. To be fair to her, though, she was very sweet about holding the flashlight while my girlfriend untied me and even offered to get me an ice pack once we had calmed down enough to explain what was happening. This girl and I were kind of making out in a bar and all of a sudden she tells me she wants to give me a blowjob. This isn't normally the sort of thing I'd do, but it had been a long time since I had any sexual contact after a bad breakup. My dumb drunk self goes along with it. We find a dark corner table and she gets down to business. She had clearly gained some experience in this department and my lack of recent experiences brought the situation to a head quickly. Suddenly she stops to ask me something, but I had hit the point of no return. I tried to hold it in but suddenly splodges geysering out of my dick onto my jeans and her hand. She just stares at me dumbfounded. I look around the room and see that 3 German guys had just paused in the doorway, and as soon as we made eye contact they pretty much all started dying of laughter while joking amongst themselves in douche between gasping for air. I honestly cannot believe I did not die of embarrassment in my cum-soaked jeans that night. I met him in a bar. He was kind of chubby and cute and friendly. I had just been screwed over by an asshole, so I was feeling pretty low, so a nice guy seemed like what I needed. I was about 28. He was in his 30s. We chatted for a bit and got steadily drunker and reckless. He ended up ditching his friends and we went back to his hotel room. I thought it would be a fun one-off, only he was just terrible. Clumsy, awkward, shaking. I still remember the hopeful look on his face as he fingered me all knuckles and thumbs in a way I hadn't experienced since my late teens. During the lead up I was rapidly losing any excitement I had, plus realizing I wasn't as attracted to his naked body as I had hoped. He was so sweet I didn't have the heart to tell him it wasn't doing it for me. Also, expressing needs was a problem of mine, that's another story. I encouraged PIV thinking at least that would be okay, but I was wrong. I had wanted a standard shag, but this was soft, slow but awkward, making Lou and he kept catching my eye and smiling like it was our wedding day. Something about it felt really weird. He came and then went down on me. Oh god. I still have nightmare flashbacks to him lapping at my vagina in a crouch position like an eager puppy. I'm not trying to be cruel here, it was just deeply unsexy somehow. I think I stopped him doing that and told him I was too tired/drunk to finish. He was so kind and nice about it, and I felt terrible for hating the sex. Afterwards he told me that I was his first. B. He was a lifelong Christian having doubts, hence the virginity. C. I had come along at the right time. He always knew there was something better than religion. I felt even worse as he thought sex marked the start of something special that night, whereas I had just been out to get laid. I stayed the night and swapped numbers trying to convince myself he was too nice to not give it a chance, but after one more date I realized I couldn't even bring myself to kiss him and had to end it. This whole episode makes me cringe for my own behavior as much as the memory of the six. Am I too late to share? I had a GF who, as soon as we started, would groan out no and stop. So, hearing this, I'd stop. Then she'd get belligerent, screaming at me, "What did you stop for? You said to stop." No, I didn't. So we'd have to restart the whole ordeal because the mood got killed. And I'm always the one who has to do all the foreplay. As soon as we get back to business, she begins the cries of stop, don't, and no. I stop, and we fight about it because she keeps insisting she isn't, saying she doesn't want it. We try one more time. She tells me not to stop no matter what. So, we go through foreplay again, and we get to it. She starts crying for me to stop. I obey her earlier commands, and continue past the rejections. She then proceeds to ball a fist and deck me right in the side of the head, then shove me on the floor while I'm dazed. She screams at me to go freak myself and storms out. Next day, she acted like nothing ever happened. I lived in an apartment complex that was basically college housing, so there were a lot of parties going on. Specific apartments would take turns throwing parties. My apartment was one of them. It didn't really matter who was throwing the party, all the same people were there. One of the guys who lived there and would be at all the parties was a real douchebag. We couldn't stand each other. We always bickered. Well, one night, the day after my boyfriend dumped me, we threw a party, and I got smashed and flirting with everyone. The douche and I, for some weird reason, teamed up during beer pong. I didn't discriminate against assholes, apparently, because I was all over him. Well, after we lose beer pong, we decide to leave the party and go to his apartment, where we proceed to have the worst sex of my life. It was so bad I got up in the middle of it and said this isn't working for me, I gotta go, and got dressed and left. Not before he said he had AIDS. I knew he was just being an asshole, so I didn't let it faze me. I said, well, good thing I saw you put a condom on. He said he took it off right before we freaked. So I responded with, well, guess now I'm gonna die a slow painful death. FYI, I don't have AIDS. I've been tested several times since then. I was dating a girl at university here in Ireland for a few weeks before she went on a family vacation to Disney World in Florida. On her return she sent me a text message saying she had brought me some gifts and couldn't wait to see me. She came over that night and we have a few drinks, and then she pulls a plastic gift bag out of her handbag, and it's filled with candy, a Toy Story Disney pen and a fridge magnet. Disappointing, I know. Later that night in bed, things start hotting up, and then she gets out of the bed and walks towards her bag again. I almost forgot your present, she said in a very sexy, excited manner. Now the lights were off at this stage, so I couldn't see anything, but suddenly I felt her hands around my shoulders and a fabric rubbing against the front of my neck. I turn the light on and look at myself in the mirror. She has tied a red bandana around me like I was about to rob a train in the Old West. She takes one really seductive look at me, calls me Woody and starts talking like she is from the Wild West, American accent and everything. I have never been so embarrassed in my life. But we continue as she tells me I really remind her of Disney Pixar's lovable cowboy played by Tom Hanks, and that it's a real fantasy for her. Making out, her pants come off, my fingers go exploring. After a few seconds something smells very off. Pull my hand back, and it's nearly coated in horrible smelling cottage cheese looking discharge. I wipe my hand off and GTFO. Stopped off at nearest gas station, go to bathroom and proceed to scrub my hands, and simultaneously puke in the sink. It took like 2 days of washing to get the smell off. I can only compare the smell to some sort of horrid pizza roll smelling thing. It seriously fucked me up to the point of not wanting to go down on women anymore. I have since, and it's been alright, but it freaking scarred me. Don't know WTF that girl was thinking. My boyfriend and I had this one particularly bad night about 3 months into our relationship. We had both been in kind of foul moods all day, so we decided to do the all get plastered and freak like rabbits routine to distress. Usually it works out fine, but that night was a total disaster, and was also almost entirely my fault. First, I whacked him in the face with my elbow while taking my shirt off. Then I couldn't get wet enough for any level of penetration. Stupid alcohol, so I opted to give him head. While I'm sucking him off, I try to angle my face to look up at him, and in the process harshly nick his glands with one of my incisors. He yelps and pushes me off. I slink off to the bathroom in embarrassment, and also to splash some cold water on my face. I then notice the lube on the bathroom sink and zing, so I grab it, thinking maybe this evening won't be a sham after all. I stumble out of the bathroom, lube in hand and ready to try again, just in time to see him finish rubbing one out. I apparently took too long, and he decided to take matters into his own hands, pun intended. Needless to say, I was very sexually frustrated that night. Had a one night stand with a friend while I was traveling. I was out that night at a bar with friends. The only reason I ended up sleeping at his house was because the guy hosting me was out with the only key and not replying to any of my texts. So I said whatever and went home with my friend instead. He made a move and I was horny and hadn't been laid in a while, and we had some chemistry, so I figured why not. At first it felt very nice to lie there in his arms as he gently stroked my back and hair. I was pretty turned on, and it seemed like it would be a promising lay. Shit went quickly downhill. He was overweight and not quite as nice looking naked as he was in his clothes. More importantly, he could not be bothered to do anything I requested. All he cared about was getting his dick inside of me. I asked him to go more slowly, more gently. It might as well have been like talking to the deaf. He was way too rough with his hands, dick, everything. I kept going with and didn't ask him to stop because I was horny and already naked and wanted the freaking release, damn it. In his defense, he also asked me a couple of times if I still wanted to continue when he noticed I wasn't so it, but it was a lost cause. At one point I lay there like a fish waiting for it to end as he pounded in and out of. Then finally he pulls out when I ask him if I can just play with myself for a bit. As we are lying there spooning and I'm trying to masturbate, he ends up like freaking me somewhere between my back and armpit. No idea what he did or how actually did that really. Then he came. I once was mid-cunnilingus when I felt a hair in my mouth. I thought it was probably just a small hair and continued with Adidas to not cause any interruptions. I started to feel it a little more and made a few unsuccessful attempts to quickly get it out. Apparently, with all of my tongue movements, the hair, which was a full-length head hair as I found out, had somehow knotted itself around my uvula. and the rest of it proceeded to slide down my throat. I started gagging uncontrollably and eventually had to reach into the back of my throat and fish the hair out. All the while, she thought I was gagging because of her. I've never seen someone put their pants on so quickly. It was a killer, to say the least. Basically unintentionally wolf bagged myself. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.